We're doing this morning is I'm going to share with you a message that is a little inspired from our youth ministry, so I can give you a little taste of what we're going through right now in the youth ministry. And so the way that I want to start this message is with a little riddle. And so today we're going to have some interactive things, and I think it'll be fun. But so I want to start actually with a riddle. Anybody in here like riddles? I'm not very good at them, but I'm curious to see if you're better than me. So here's the riddle. Okay, most people have it, and you can throw that slide up so we can have a visual. Most people have it. Everybody wants it. It is important as eating, sleeping, and exercising right. And people who have these are scientifically proven to live better and longer lives. So just leave that up there for a second. And if you think that you know what the answer to this riddle is, what is the it? If you think you know, just yell it out. Jesus, hope, mothers, those are all good. I think Jesus applies to like a lot of it, so that, I heard water. Wait, yes, were you here last week? Yes. So in this case, it refers to friends. In the youth ministry, we're on a series called Crew. Apparently that is the cool, hip lingo for friends right now, the crew, the squad. So about friends. And when I was preparing this week to share this message with you guys, I was like, oh, friends. This isn't a room full of teenagers, although there may be some teenagers in the room. And I was like, adults don't have problems with friends. And then I started thinking about it for a second. And I was like, well, let me just start with me. Like, do I have friend problems? And the more I thought about it, I was like, actually, this is kind of uncomfortable, but I don't know if I'm crazy, but I think I've almost had more friend problems and drama as I've been an adult than when I was a teenager. Maybe it's because I was super, super shy when I was a teenager and I only had like one or two friends. And so that kept the drama low. But I think about it, and as I've gotten older, I've experienced conflict with friends, big conflict. I've experienced, being lonely. It's always weird when you finish college. I know for some of our young adults in the room, you finish college and you get a job, and it's like, whoa, where's all my peeps? They're not here, especially in Mandeville. Like, where's all the other single young people? And I remember being in that spot. Even I'm married now, and there are even times where I'm like, I'm tired of hanging out with boys all the time. Sorry, Neil and Sean. I'm like, where's the ladies at? I still sometimes struggle with friends. And so I know a lot of you out there are probably in the same boat. And what we're kind of more specifically talking about this morning is this idea of when it comes to friends, even family, but who do we listen to? I know for our teenagers, a lot of times we know that their friends are the people that are talking the loudest in their ears. But I know for a lot of us, we have a lot of friends around us, and who do we listen to on those big decisions? How can we recognize wisdom? And so that's a little bit of what we're going to be talking about this morning, so I'm super excited about it. Now, what we're going to be coming from is we're coming from a book called Proverbs. Since I've started working on this message, before that, I really never cared for Proverbs very much. I don't know about you, but you read it and it just kind of is what it is. You read it and you're like, oh, they have the most random things in there. I think there's one about a woman being a jewel in a pig's snout. Like, there's just things in there. You just read through it and you're going to find some that you're just like, whoa, does it say that in the Bible? But, Proverbs, they are what they are, they're sayings, but the more that I've dug into it, the more I'm realizing how profound a lot of the wisdom in the Proverbs is, and when I think about that, I think about, what's the context for Proverbs? And the Proverbs were just wise sayings that were written by this guy named Solomon. Solomon inherited the throne of Israel from his father David, and there's this moment where Solomon he's becoming king, and he has this dream. And in the dream, God actually comes to him and asks him, what do you want? And I'm like, whoa, that's cool. God has never showed up to me in a dream and said, what do you want? And the thing that I think is really amazing about Solomon is he's not like, well, I think I'd like a new car, and I'm kind of in some rough circumstances right now. If you could just get me out of that really quick, that'd be great. But he doesn't ask for that in this dream. He actually says, I would love an understanding heart and wisdom. And so, of course, God grants him that, and God grants him wealth and long life and all this other wonderful things because he's pleased with what he asked for. But that's where the Proverbs comes from. And Solomon wrote these Proverbs and this wisdom to share for us. And there's actually a lot in there about friendship and about relationships. So I actually want to look at one scripture, and we'll start there. It says, the way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. And I want you to keep that up there for a second. When I read this about 2 weeks ago, it kind of stung at first because I realized that I am more often the fool than I am the wise person, if I'm really, going to be honest with myself. When I was younger, I never wanted I didn't like the group projects. Anybody in here not a fan of group projects when you were in school or even college? Like, I hated group projects. And it wasn't that I didn't love people. I loved people. I just didn't really trust them to do my work and get my grade. I'd rather just do it myself, and if I do badly, it's because I did badly. It's not because someone else did badly, right? So I thought, I would rather go my own way than listen to someone else. My mom used to say, that when I was growing up, sometimes I would have this vibe that I would give off at times, and it wasn't all the time, but just every now and then. And she still kind of jokes with me about it to this day, but she would imitate me, and she would kind of do something like this. And she'd say, I do what I want. She would say, that's what you look like to me. And I think it's because growing up there was like this trigger, when someone tells you what to do, you're like, oh no, I do what I want. And it's been funny, I got married about 6 months ago this month, and I've noticed that my husband and I have a very similar trigger, and it is that very thing. Don't tell me what to do. And it's funny because we're normally really chill and laid back, but every now and then, it can be the simplest things. We were at the ice cream place Bops the other day, and he was paying, and he got the card back, and he was going to put it in his wallet, but for some reason I thought it needed to go somewhere else in the wallet than where he was putting it. And I don't know what came over me. I was like, oh, you should put it right there. You need to put it right there. I probably said, you need to put it right there in the wallet. And he was like, his eyes bugged out. Like, what? Are you telling me what to do with my stuff? I was like, oh, if you want to put it there in the wallet, I think it would be more convenient, but, whatever. It's just silly things like that, but I realized that I kind of do the same thing. I'm like, oh, this is the better way, so don't tell me what to do, And so I think about that verse, and when I read that verse, the way of fools is the person who thinks that their own way is right and they don't listen to other people. I was like, oh yeah, I feel that. But it said that the wise people listen to advice. And so thinking about that and thinking about this scripture, I was like, wow, that's something. And what I've learned about wisdom in reading is that wisdom starts with having a humble heart. We're going to talk about a lot of other things and friendship and wisdom, but really for us, I think it starts with the heart. We can have the wisest people around us, but if we don't have a heart that is open and receptive to wisdom, it won't matter because we'll think our way is better and we'll think our way is right. So that's kind of where I wanted to start this morning. And so for me, it was like a check. Like, you're going to talk about wisdom, but are you willing to accept it and learn from the people in your lives? So that's really the first thing this morning is, are we open and receptive to wisdom? Do we have humble hearts? But I say all of that. There's some wisdom out there that is not great advice. So I'm not saying you should listen to everybody. I want to show a little lighthearted video because I think there is a lot of bad advice out there. And so we're going to take a little break. We're going to look at this video for a second.
Worst piece of advice I ever received was when I was 5 years old. My brother and I were playing near the Christmas tree, looking at all the ornaments and looking at our reflection in it. And my brother said if you push on that ball, you can warp the image around and sort of play with your reflection. So I pushed on the ornament, and instantly it breaks right in my hand, and a piece of glass goes shooting into my eye. So I start screaming. My brother's like, Mom and Dad are going to be mad. Stop screaming. And I was like, well, there's glass in my eye. And then my parents came running in, and I had to be rushed off to the emergency room, and that's Christmas.
The worst advice that I ever got was in the 8th grade, and they told us that we're going to do career projects. I think, well, this is going to be very easy because I know what I want to be when I grow up. The teacher comes around to check all of our outlines and approve them. And there she is towering over me, and she looks down at me and she says, you can't do that for your project. You have to change your career because that is a hobby and that is not a job. And I walked away and moved on to the next student after the project was over. I decided to keep on with my thing.
Some of the worst advice I ever got in my life was the first summer I went to summer camp. I was a very shy, sweaty kid back then, and we kind of had like a cool cabin. It was like the cool guys. They had like switchblade combs, they could talk to girls, and I had a couple of accidents, I guess you could call them. So I didn't want to put my laundry in with everybody else's, so I was given advice by another camper to hide my underwear in the cabin. You know, when cabins are on hills, and there's rain, sometimes underwear will kind of like wash up like it's on a shore, and it'll just be there in front of your cabin as they come back from lunch. And then your parents put your name in them. A lonely last night campfire for this guy. Thanks a lot.
All right, so I saw that video, and I was like, this is hilarious, but bad advice. There's some really bad advice out there. So I was like, where can I find bad advice? Facebook. So I started perusing some advice on Facebook, and so I'm going to throw a couple of those up there. You can throw the first one up. This young lady said, I didn't want to eat Thanksgiving dinner one year because of the calories. My grandmother told me to tickle my throat after I ate. It's like, oh, that's never worked for me, but maybe. This one, she says, my sister told me if we throw rocks at the bee's nest, we'll scare them away. I would like to know how that works out, but I'm not going to try it. And then the last one, on long road trips, I would get sent to the side of the road to pee. I was 5, and when complaining I didn't want to because everyone driving by could see me, I was told, close your eyes, no one's going to see you. I'm not a parent, but I can see myself saying this to a child on a road trip, so I understand. But, it's funny and we laugh about it, but really, I mean, there's bad advice like this out there, but there's also advice that's not so great. That's not advice from heaven. That's not wonderful, good, rich advice from wise people. And so the more I started thinking about this, and I'm thinking about this verse that tells us that, we should listen to the advice of others, I started asking the question, okay, well, who should we be listening to? How can we recognize wisdom? How do I find that? And so that's kind of what we're going to continue talking about is wisdom in our lives. How can we recognize it? And where can we go to find it? So I want to start a little more of this conversation with a little game. Because this is kind of what the game is going to represent. A lot of times, I think, we tend to mix up wisdom and intelligence, right? So I'm going to give you a little taste of what we do in youth ministry, and let's have a little game or a little fun something. So I'm going to need 2 volunteers. Now, let me tell you what you're going to do first, because this would terrify me. But you are not like me, so you're going to be better. I want to know who in here is good with mental math, because what you're going to do is you're going to come up here and you're going to do a little mental math battle. They're very easy, I promise. I'm horrible at mental math, so I made sure I found easy ones. I don't even know if I could come up with some that weren't easy. So, anybody? 2 people. Laura? Okay, come on. Somebody want to come up here and battle Laura? Anybody? Neil? I didn't plant them in the crowd. I really didn't. So come over here. We've got an easy button, and you guys can kind of both stand right here close to it because when you know the answer, you're going to have to hit the easy button. So it's also a game of reflexes. So, okay. I'm getting my cheat sheet out. All right. This is a warm-up. You have to wait until I finish the whole thing. Sorry, I'm building it up. 2 plus 2 is? 4. Okay, that's how it's going to work. You got it? You got it? Okay. We're going to try another easy one. What is 4 plus 5?
That was easy. 9.
Very good. That was easy. All right. Here's the next one. 6 times 9.
That was easy.
You hit it first.
I didn't hit it. My hand was
I really checked to see if I was right because I haven't done a lot of this without a calculator in a long time. What is the square root of 81?
That was easy.
Thanks, Laura.
This is like teamwork. All right. What is 4 plus 4 times 4?
That was easy.
32. 8. 28.
No.
No. For a second, I didn't. I was like, what?
It's 20.
It is. Order of operations, right? You do the multiplication first, then you do the addition. Okay. Here's the last one. This one, the winner is going to go to this person. Okay. You're going to be the winner. Okay. What is 10% of 7,382? Just move the decimal.
Yeah. 738 point whatever the last one was.
Point 2. Give Neil and Laura a round of applause. All right, Neil, I want you to stay here. Laura, you can go ahead and have a seat. I think you're brilliant. Mental math is not a true test of intelligence. All right, Neil, you're the winner, so you get to get a prize out of this supremely sketchy prize box. So come around the front because that's where the actual opening is, and I want you just to reach in and grab your prize.
Okay, thanks, Jen.
What?
I got some spaghetti.
Nice! Yay! Okay, Neil, hold on. That wasn't the prize. There's something else in there. Woo! Okay, reach in there again.
It's gonna be more spaghetti. Is there anything else in here?
It's actually just spaghetti in there, Neil. But if you want, you can reach in again.
Nope.
All right, now, this is a very silly illustration, but this is the difference between I gave you the intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence, mental math, but wisdom is about experience. Neil knew at the beginning that it was sketchy, but he's my friend, so he reached in there. But he knew he didn't need to keep reaching in there. It was just spaghetti. Experience told him that. Give him a round of applause. You can have that spaghetti. It's just olive oil. Or if you want to put it in this, you can. I was better prepared for you than I was with the kids. Awesome. So I do that. I know it's very elementary and very silly. But I do that to say there is a big difference, right, between intelligence and between wisdom. And I think a lot of times in our culture we get them confused, right? And it's not just mental math, because we're like, oh, that's silly. But, how many times are you in a room full of people, especially high school kids, but I've even heard adults do this, where you start comparing ACT scores? Like, oh yeah, I got a 31 or whatever, Or, we compare our degrees. Maybe not verbally, but you're like, well, I have more things in front of my name or not. Or we compare where we went to college, or we compare IQs. And those things are praised so much in our culture. They're so smart, they're so intellectual, and that's awesome and that's great. But we all know that when we're looking for wisdom, they're not always the same thing, right? Because wisdom and intelligence, they're not always the same. I think about my mom. I love my mom, and she used to always, I feel like when she would talk about school, she would always say, I wasn't very good in school, I made C's and y'all are so much smarter than me. And she would talk about, I went to college, but I met your dad the first year and then I stopped and I started raising kids. And I always sometimes would feel like she was kind of talking down to herself because, she didn't have she didn't finish college, and maybe she didn't make the greatest grades when she was growing up. But I look at my mom, and when I think about the people in my life that I go to for wisdom, I go to my mom, because she knows about life. She's experienced it. She can relate on a whole nother level. And it doesn't matter that she didn't make awesome grades in school or finish college, because she had experience. And so I think about that, and I wonder, are we people who, when we think about the people that we want to surround ourselves with, do we think about surrounding ourselves with people who are rich in wisdom? We want intellectual and smart people, but are we surrounding ourselves with people who are rich in wisdom? I think about, there's a verse in Proverbs that comes from Proverbs chapter 13, if you can throw that up there. It says, "He who walks with the wise becomes wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm." I think about, a lot of times we get in these situations in our lives, and maybe it's like we're having a lot of conflict in our families, and sometimes the first people that we go to are other people that can kind of commiserate with us, who also are having all of these same conflicts and things, and it's wonderful to have support in that way. But sometimes I think, wow, like maybe that's not the most wise thing to do. Maybe I need to be looking for someone who is achieving the reality of what I want, and go and learn from them. I think about that on a lot of different. I just got married, and so, I want to be around people sometimes who can show me what I'm supposed to do right, like Vanda and Ran. Like they are wise. I watch their marriage, and I'm like, wow, those are people that I should seek to know more about their lives and their marriage, so that I can do it. So I can do it right, And so that's wisdom. That's what it means to walk with the wise, is to find people who are living the reality of what we want to see happen, and asking them questions, and getting close to them so that we can learn to imitate that. So that's the first thing I think about when I think about how are we going to recognize wisdom in our lives is one, are we looking for people who have experience? And the second thing that I think of when I think about how are we going to recognize wisdom, most importantly, I think about, are we looking for wisdom that looks like Jesus? I think about Jesus when I read in the scriptures and the encounters that I've had with Jesus. The wisdom that comes from Jesus, right, is giving. Is the wisdom that looks like feeding people. It's the wisdom that looks like caring for the sick and the brokenhearted. It's the wisdom that is life-giving. It's full of mercy. The kind of wisdom that says, get up. I'm not accusing you. Go and leave your life of sin. All those stories that we think of Jesus, that's what wisdom looks like personified in a person. And that's what we should be looking for. But I know that we're human, we're broken, and we're looking for people who emulate qualities of Jesus and who are living after Jesus. But one thing that I've realized, and that I would maybe caution all of us, is sometimes experience doesn't always equal wisdom automatically, And I think I can think about this in my own life. There have been times where I've been deeply hurt or deeply wounded by an experience. And if someone would have come to me during some of those periods of times, during those times in my life that were hard, in the middle of it, I might not have given them the best advice. Because in the middle of that experience, sometimes I might have been, I was bitter, I'm sure. I was hurt. And so sometimes the experience actually resulted in just this kind of, it wasn't wisdom yet. Hadn't completely walked through it yet. And so I think about this when I think about, I was a teacher for a couple of years in Baton Rouge. But I decided I wanted to be a teacher in high school. And I remember talking to a lot of people who were teachers and telling them what I wanted to do. And the first thing that almost everyone told me was, oh, no, you're too smart for that. Or you just need to run in the other direction. And I was like, but I had a great English teacher and I wanted to be like her, and I don't, And then I remember there was one teacher, her name was Miss Minetta, and I'll never forget her. She actually wasn't even my teacher, she was my brother's teacher. But she was this awesome woman. I remember telling her that I wanted to be a teacher, and she actually was the first teacher that encouraged me to be a teacher. And a thing that I thought was really interesting about her was that she saw her teaching as hard, and she told me it was, but she also saw it as a calling, that she got to actually be light in a place that was actually really dark, because you have kids coming in and out, and you don't know what's going on in their lives. And so she actually showed me what her experience had taught her, but the cool thing about Miss Minetta is that I found out that she was a person who was following Jesus through that experience. She was a Jesus lover. And she allowed Jesus to come in and shape her perspective of her situation and of her job. And so she allowed that to happen. And because of that, she had this heavenly wisdom for me to share with me that didn't come from a place of hardship or brokenness or bitterness, but came from a place of Jesus, that Jesus had taught her how to see her circumstances. And so I know for a lot of us, for us, we may just be in a place where we need to follow Jesus through whatever we're going through and ask him to show us his wisdom about our situations so that we are not the people who are giving wisdom out of brokenness and bitterness. Or we might be people, it might be us that we need to start, putting our antennas on for who are people that are following after God that I can follow after too, so that I can imitate their wisdom in their life. There's a guy named Paul in the scriptures, and Paul, when he started all these churches, and he writes letters to all these churches, and he's pastoring them, and he's giving them wisdom. And one of the things that I love about Paul, and one of the readings that I've read about him is he says this, it's in 1 Corinthians, but he says, follow after me as I follow after Jesus. And I think Paul is a biblical example of what that looks like, to be a person who is gaining wisdom because they're following Jesus, but also someone that we're looking for, people in our lives who can actually say like, hey, I'm following after Jesus, so come on, follow after me. And we want to be those people too, right? That we feel confident to say to people, follow after me. I'm following after Jesus. So that's really the second thing, and I only have one more for you, and then we'll wrap it up. But we need to be looking for wisdom from experience. We need to be looking for wisdom that looks like Jesus. We always want to measure it to Jesus. And then the third one is we want to look for wisdom that looks like the truth. Not just looks like the truth, but is the truth. And so I want to throw up that last Proverbs verse from chapter 12. It says, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but whoever hates correction is stupid. Proverbs 12:1. So they just lay it out there for you. And you can leave that up there for a second. This is also one that kind of takes a blow to the pride a little bit. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge or wisdom. Whoever hates correction is stupid. The last thing is we want to make sure that we are people that are not just looking for wisdom that says yes to us all the time. That we're not just looking for the yes man. I don't know if you've seen the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey. He goes to a self-help seminar and he decides to say yes to everything for a year after that. And a lot of great things happen to him, but a lot of bad things happen to him too. And we don't want only yes friends. We want to make sure that we have those people in our lives that love us enough to tell us no, because we need it. We need someone to say, no, I don't think that's a good idea. No, I don't think that they make your life better. I don't think that you should spend that or drink that or whatever it is. We need people to tell us no sometimes, and so we want to look for wisdom that will actually tell us the truth, even though sometimes our egos are really fragile and we don't want to hear it. So this is a lot of what I've learned about what it means to be wise from what I've studied the past couple weeks. But I want us to start thinking about ourselves here. Who are we listening to? And I don't know what situation you're in your life right now, what you might need wisdom for. I don't know if you're, maybe at a crossroads in a relationship or a crossroads with a job or your faith, or maybe with a child, your husband or your wife. I don't know where you are, but I challenge you again. There's wisdom out there. There's wisdom from Jesus that's out there. To seek him first. But there's a lot of people in our community. I'm sure there are a lot of people, even in this room, that have some really rich wisdom for you that comes from experience, that comes from following Jesus, and that is truthful. And so I want us to, what we're going to do right now is I want us to take, we do this in the youth program, but we take 120 seconds and we just ask God to talk to us a little bit about what we've heard. And so the question that I want us to ask this morning is, who are we listening to?